welcome to the channel and welcome to the finale of my Age of Fantasy Skirmish campaign between my Goblins known as Dribblesnot Sneakygits and my Havoc Warrior Disciples known as the Beasts That Hunger. This really will be the decider. It's the last game of the campaign, episode 9 games in, and it all comes down to this. The Beasts That Hunger are on 8 victory points, Dribblesnot Sneakygits are on 8 victory points. So whoever wins this matchup will be the victor of the campaign. You watch, it'll be a draw now. Just to quickly go through the warbands, but I won't go through all the upgrades because there are quite a lot by this point. For Dribblesnot Sneakygits, we've got Dribblesnot Flashbang. He's the Cave Shaman. He is the leader of the Sneakygits. We've got Swampy Stompy the Forest Troll. We've got Scabbers Stabbers, a unit of Cave Goblins with spears. We've got Slobbergob the Cave Beast. And the newest unit, Garp's Chosen Grots, who are a unit of Cave Archers. And including the points increases to various units, they are now worth 275 points. For the Havoc Warrior Disciples, they are being led by Harak the Exalted. He is a Lord of War. Of the 3 that started, there's 1 remaining Gore Reaver, that is Greekar. We have Gareth Skullsplitter, the Death Reaper. We have Creighton, the Bearer of Despair, who is a second Death Reaper. He's the guy with the banner. We've got Terrafang, the Demon Bloodhound. And then we've got 3 Gore Warriors, Grag the Howler, Kerulk the Berserk, and the newest addition to the warband at the back here, Kargon the Wrathful. And with various upgrade costs for abilities and such like, they are now worth 340 points. Now because that's a 65 point difference, the Goblins will get 6 underdog points to spend during the course of the game. So an underdog point can be used to modify any die by plus or minus 1, but you can only use 1 point per die. And it's not per roll, it's per die. So like I said, I'll go through the various upgrades as and when they become relevant in the game, because there's quite a lot to go through. However, one thing we will do is go through special objectives. So we've got green dice for the Goblins, red, black and gold dice for the Havoc Warrior Disciples. So for this battle, the Goblins will be trying to achieve honour. No enemy units in their own deployment zone at the end, so that is no Havoc Warrior Disciples in the Goblins deployment zone. However, we need to re-roll for the Beasts That Hunger because they've got casting, which is all about casting and blocking spells, and they don't have anybody who can do that, so we'll re-roll that. That's 4, and that's recovery. The first player to recover a unit from stun. Now, technically this is going to be a little bit irrelevant because the outcome of these simply gives you 10 extra points to spend on the warband at the end of the game. But what we'll do is, we'll use this as a tiebreaker, so in the event that the scores are tied at the end of the game, if one or other of the warbands has achieved their special objective, we'll use that as the tiebreaker. And of course if they've both done it, then we'll have to think of some other way, maybe even another battle, but we'll cross that bridge if and when we come to it. Hopefully I haven't talked it up. Before we get started on the mission, a big thank you from myself to all of you who have been following along and giving me your messages of support. It is appreciated and I'm glad that you've found it entertaining, and thank you for coming along for the journey. Let's see who the ultimate victor is. Okay, so we're set up, and once again we've got 6 objectives out because we will be using the mission cards. So drawing 3 cards at the start of each turn, and both warbands will have to try and achieve the mission objectives on those cards. Once again, the Beasts That Hunger won the roll-off for deployment, so they are on the deployment zone closest to us, and the Goblins are obviously on the other side. So for the Beasts That Hunger, they've got a strong left flank with the 2 Death Reapers and Terrafang the Bloodhound. In the centre we've got the lone Gore Reaver, who is looking to take that objective, and then on the other flank we've got the Gore Warriors with Harak the Exalted, again looking to charge up the flank. For the Goblins, on their left flank, right of our screen, we've got Swampy Stompy and the Cave Archers. In the centre we've got the Cave Beast, and then on the other flank we've got Dribblesnot with Scabbers Stabbers. Right, let's go on to the card draw and any random events for turn 1. So the objectives that both warbands will be trying to achieve in turn 1, we've got hold 6. That's not actually possible in turn 1 because you need to be controlling that objective marker at the beginning and end of the same turn. We've got charge, which is destroy 1 enemy unit in melee for 1 victory point, or 3 or more enemy units for 2 victory points. That's unlikely. And then we've got cleanse the skies, so destroy an enemy unit with the flying rule, and that is completely impossible because there aren't any. So we will discard that one. And the one drawn in its place was seize 4. So control objective marker 4. Now that bodes well for the Beast That Hunger because that's quite close to their deployment zone. It's the one in the centre towards their deployment zone where Greekar, the Gore Reaver, is. Right, let's roll the die to see if there's going to be a random event. On a 5+, there is. So we'll go purple dice is 10s, green dice is units. 16. Disheartened. All units from one random warband get -1 morale until the end of the game. Okay. So odds, it'll be the Goblins. Evens, it'll be the Beast That Hunger. It's the Goblins. So the one time they win a random roll, it's for a negative. So the Beasts That Hunger get the first activation for the first turn, and because they need to seize objective 4, and it's right next to Greekar, Greekar is simply going to advance forwards onto the objective. It's not currently an active objective, but Slobbergob is going to advance forwards onto objective 3 in case it comes up in later game turns. For the Beast That Hunger, Kerulk the Berserk is going to rush forwards, trying to get as close as he can to the Goblins. In response, the Goblins are going to advance onto objective 5, again holding it in preparation for future turns, and then shoot at Kerulk the Berserk. So they've advanced forwards just enough so that all 3 of them are within 3 inches of the objective. They get 3 shots, hitting on 5s. Okay, so that is 3 misses. I think I'll spend an underdog bonus to turn that 4 into a 5, so we at least get 1 hit out of it. This will be a 3-up save. That's a 4. So there's no point spending an underdog point on that, because they can only affect it by 1, which will take it down to a 3, which is still a save. Crag the Howler is also going to rush forwards. Swampy Stompy is going to charge Grag the Howler. Now Swampy is agile, so he gets an extra 3 inches to his charge moves, so he can easily get into combat with Grag. Now Swampy is a specialist in melee, so he gets +1 to his hit rolls. He gets 3 attacks hitting on 4s, but he's also elite, so he gets 1 re-roll per round. Okay, so we'll re-roll 2. And it's still a 2. Yeah, we will spend an underdog point to turn that 2 into a 3. So that's 3 hits. These will be 4-up saves because Swampy's big stick, his hand weapon, is AP1. So that's 2 fails. So that's 2 wounds on Grag the Howler. Is he knocked out? 2 + 3 is 5. Now I can spend another underdog point to turn that 3 into a 4, and that will knock out Grag the Howler. So yeah, I think we'll do that. And then Swampy can consolidate 3 inches, but I think he's just going to stay put. He's out of charge range of anybody else. So yeah, I think we'll just leave it there. Staying on this flank, Kargon the Wrathful is going to advance onto objective 6. So So it's now nicely positioned in preparation for the next round if hold 6 is still on the table. For the Goblins, Scabbers Stabbers are going to advance onto objective 1. Thusly, Harrick the Exalted is going to rush forwards. And for the Goblins, that just leaves Dribblesnot. He is going to try and cast Spider's Might on Scabbers Stabbers, so that will go off on a 2+. Ordinarily 4+, but he's Wizard 2, so 2+2 to the dice roll. So that passes, so that means Scabbers Stabbers now get poison the next time they fight. So if they roll any 6s, any 6s they roll will count as 3 hits. So that just left Creighton, Gareth and Terrafang to activate. Creighton has advanced onto objective 2. Gareth is agile, like Swampy is, so he gets an extra +3 to rush and charge, so he's moved forwards his full 15 inches. And then Terrafang has rushed forwards. He is fast, so he can move 18, and he is now within 3 inches of objective 1, so contesting objective 1. That will be the end of the activations for turn 1. So we'll do a quick overview of the battlefield and see how that's affected the points. So at the end of turn 1, the beasts that hunger are in control of objectives 2, 4 and 6. The goblins are in control of objectives 3 and 5, but objective 1 is contested. So back to the objective cards. Like I said at the beginning, it's not possible because of the way the objectives were laid out to achieve hold 6 in the first turn. However, the beasts that hunger are currently in control of objective 6, so nicely placed for turn 2. Charge, destroy 1 or more enemy units in melee. The goblins achieved that because Swampy Stompy knocked out Grag the Howler. And then seize 4, the beasts that hunger achieved that. They've currently got Greekar on objective 4, so that will be 1 point each at the end of turn 1. When we go into turn 2, the goblins will get the first activation because they finished activating first. Okay, card draw for turn 2, and it's really not looking good for the goblins. So we've still got hold 6 from turn 1, but we've also drawn seize 6. So simply have to control it, and you'll get another victory point. And then Spellbreaker, destroy an enemy model with the wizard rule, and the only wizard we've got is Dribblesnot. So interesting turn ahead, I think. Right, is there going to be a random event on a 5 or a 6? Yes there is. You think how many games we went without a random event, and now we've had 2 in a row in the final game. Right. So again, purple for the 10s, green for units. 61. So it was 16 last time, but now we've got 61. 61 is Wisdom of the Gods. Select 1 random unit, which immediately gains D3 XP. Okay. Odds, goblins, evens, war disciples. Goblins. A bit late in the day for that now. Trying to decide, is it worth actually rolling for it? Let's have a look. So we'll roll a die. 1, Dribblesnot. 2, Scabbers Stabbers. 3, Slobbergob. 4, the Archers. 5, Swampy. 6, reroll. 4, so it's the Archers. So yeah, not going to have any difference whatsoever because this is the last game of the campaign. I'm going to start things off with Dribblesnot. He's going to try and cast Glare on Terrafang. So this will be a 2-up, ordinarily 4-up, but Wizard do. And let's see if he can actually do it this time. He hasn't had a lot of luck with this recently. Okay. He's not an elite, so he can't re-roll that. Right, so Dribblesnot has now scarpered as far as we can get, and that is just enough to get him out of charge range of Terrafang. And just to remind you, we can't use an underdog point on the 1 because a 1 is always a fail regardless of modifiers, and an underdog point effectively gives a modifier, so we can't use an underdog point to turn the 1 into a 2 because it would still be a fail because it's a natural 1. Anyway, Havoc is going to charge Swampy Stompy, and he's had a few upgrades since the last time we saw him. So in he goes. He's furious, so he gets 5 attacks when he charges using his halberd, hitting on 3s. Okay, so 6s are rending with a halberd. So that is 1 rending hit and 3 regular hits. The 2 is a miss, but Havoc has got the elite upgrade, so he can re-roll 1 die per round. So he can re-roll this too. And it's a 1, so that's still a miss. And there's no point in using underdog points on any of those because there will still be hits, and the 6 would still be rending because it's a natural 6. Right, so saves. The 6 would need a natural 6 to save because it's rending, which is AP 4. So that fails. So that's 1 wound through on Swampy. And these are regular saves, but Swampy gets +1 because he's resilient. So that's 1 save. The 4 would be a save. So these other 2, Swampy can try and regenerate on 5s. Okay, so I'll spend an underdog point to turn that 4 into a 5, so that regenerates. So that'll be 2 wounds through on Stompy. Now Swampy can fight back, but Havoc is now a duelist, so he's -1 to hit. So Swampy's back to hitting on 4s. And we've got a 3 and a 1, and that one's cocked. Probably would have been a 1, but benefit of the doubt re-roll because it's not flat on the table. Okay, so that's 1 hit. We'll spend an underdog point to turn that 3 into a 4. So that's 2 hits at AP 1. And Havoc is back to defense 3 up. He took a chest wound in the first game, which made him -1 to saves, but since then he's picked up resilient, which is +1 to saves, so he's back to saving on 3s. However, AP 1 makes it 4s. And they both fail. So that's 2 wounds back on Havoc. And Havoc has to back off an inch. And both of these characters have got tough 3, so we don't roll to see if they're knocked out until they've taken 3 wounds. Down here, Scabbard Stabbers are going to charge Terrafang. And the blue D6 showing the 3 side is just a reminder to me that they get poison, so any unmodified 6s to hit count as 3 hits. Now they are cave goblins, so they're furious, so they get an extra attack each when they charge. They are also now specialists in melee, so they get +1 to hit. So we'll start with Scabber, who is that guy in the middle, because he is the sergeant, so he'll get 2 attacks and he'll be hitting on 3s. That's 2 hits. No AP, saving on 4s. So that's 1 wound through. And the other 2 guys get 2 attacks each, and they'll be hitting on 4s. So 4 attacks in total hitting on 4s. Okay, so that's 4 hits. No 6s. And these will save on 4s as well. So that's 3 wounds through. So that puts Terrafang onto 4 wounds, having taken. Now, because we've got a musician there, sorry, standard bearer, musician was in the other group of goblins that got killed in the last game, they got a standard bearer, so when we roll this d6 to see if Terrafang is knocked out, we added an additional 1 to it because of the musician. So, yep, that's definitely a knockout. 4 + 4 is 8, plus an extra 1 is 9. So Terrafang is knocked out. And the Scabbard Stabbers are then going to fall back onto objective 1, moving away from the oncoming Gareth Skull Splitter. Now that might upset some people, because I know that Terrafang's got quite a few fans out there. Back over here, Kerulk the Berserk is going to charge Swampy, Carol doesn't have any upgrades, but he is furious, so he will get 3 attacks hitting on 3s. Okay, so that's 2 1s and a 3. And I think we'll spend our last underdog point to turn that 3 into a 2, so all 3 miss. Swampy can now hit back, but because he's already fought this turn, he'll be hitting on unmodified 6s. That's 1 hit. This will be a 4-up save. That's a fail. On a 5 or 6, Carol gets knocked out. He's knocked out. Way to go, Swampy. The archers have advanced and they're going to shoot at Havoc. 3 shots hitting on 5s. That's 1 hit. 3-up save. That's a pass. Now Kargon the Wrathful is going to charge Swampy, and even though he's on objective 6, because of the way that this game system works, you can safely leave the objective and still be classed as having captured it, as denoted by the red crystal. So Kargon gets 3 attacks because he's furious, hitting on 3s. That's 1 hit. This will be a 4-up save. That's a fail. 5-up ignore through regeneration. No, and there's no underdog points to turn that 4 into a 5. So Swampy has now taken 3 wounds. On a 5 or a 6, he'll be knocked out. No, 2 plus 2 is 4, so he's simply stunned. Can Kargon kick him away on a 4-up? Yes, he can. So he kicks him 2 inches, but then he still has to fall back an inch because he didn't knock out his opponent. And now Swampy hasn't activated yet, so he's now going to activate and simply stand up and unstun himself. And in doing that, he is denying the Beast That Hunger their special objective for the mission, which was to be the first player to have a unit unstun themselves. So far, all 3 of their other units have been knocked out. Right. Gareth is going to charge Scabbers Stabbers. Now, Gareth is tough 3, and Scabbers Stabbers have spears, which gives them the phalanx special rule, which means we roll a die for each element of tough in Gareth, so that would be 3 dice up to as many models in the phalanx unit, so that would be 3. So on any 1s, Gareth will take a wound. It's not a good day to be Gareth. That's 2 wounds before he's even punched anybody. However, on the subject of punching, he will now get a chance to punch the goblins, or rather slice at them with his hand weapons. 3 attacks hitting on 3s. Apologies, Goblin fans, that should be 2 attacks because I forgot that when you charge a phalanx, you lose any special abilities that are affected by a charge, i.e. Furious, so we should have only had 2 attacks instead of 3. That's 2 hits, no 6s, 6s would have been rending. So this is 6-up saves, so either way they still need 6s to save. So that's 2 fails. So we will take out the standard bearer and the regular goblin. Scabber can fight back, he'll get 1 attack, but this time hitting on natural 6s because he's already fought in combat this turn. Nope, that's a miss. So then Gareth falls back an inch. Now Slobbergob is going to charge Gareth. With his Boing ability, he gets to move an additional 3d3 inches on charge moves, but that means he'll be moving a minimum of 15, and that's enough to get him into charge range. So he is simply going to move his 15 inches around the Stony Armbread rather than through it, because the Stony Armbread terrain is difficult terrain. So he's going to go around it and end in contact with Gareth. Slobbergob gets 2 attacks hitting on 4s. Both hit. These are AP1, so 5s to save. So saves 1, fails 1, so that puts Gareth onto 3 wounds. And on a 5 or a 6, Gareth will be knocked out. That's cocked. No way of telling whether that was going to be a 1 or a 5, so benefit the doubt reroll because it wasn't flat. It's a 4. So Gareth is simply stunned. And I don't think Slobbergob wants to kick him away, so Slobbergob will simply push back an inch. And that leaves Gareth as a very tempting target for next turn. Creighton is going to rush forwards to aid his comrade, but he can't get into combat, he's too far away for a charge move. And Greekar is simply going to mark himself as activated. And that will be the end of turn 2. So, at the end of turn 2, the Beasts That Hunger are still in control of objectives 2, 4 and 6. The Goblins are still in control of objectives 3 and 5, but objective 1 is still contested because Creighton is just within 3 inches of it. Let's check out the mission cards and see how that has affected things. Right, so the Beasts That Hunger are holding objective 6. And they still control objective 6, so they have seized objective 6. However, the elusive Goblin Shaman continues to be elusive, and they have not destroyed an enemy model with the wizard rule. So that's 3 extra points for the Beasts That Hunger, putting them on 4, and the Goblins are still on 1. So the Goblins are now losing, so they can choose a card to discard. And I think we're definitely going to get rid of Spellbreaker, because Dribblesnot is kind of fond of himself and doesn't want himself to get killed. Objective cards for turn 3. Interesting, we've got 2 that are basically opposite from each other. So on the march, have no units from your army in your deployment zone. That's relatively easy for both of the warbands to achieve. And then delve deep. Have at least 1 unit within the enemy's deployment zone for 1 victory point. Have at least 3 units with the enemy's deployment zone for 2 victory points. And of course the Goblins have got their special objective of having no enemy units in their deployment zone by the end of the game. And then finally we've got Hold 1, so control objective marker 1 at the beginning and end of the same round. Now that's currently contested, so neither side is going to score that one this turn. Is there going to be a random event on a 5 or a 6? No. Now the Goblins get to activate first. Now poor old Swampy over here is on 3 wounds, but I'm afraid I might have to sacrifice him because over here there is a nice easy target of opportunity, because we simply need to charge Gareth with either Slobbergob or Scabber, and that will automatically knock him out, and that will put the Beasts That Hunger down to half their starting units, which will trigger morale at the end of the turn. And then we just have to hope that Swampy can fend off the incoming attacks. So Gareth Skullsplitter is going to suffer the ignominy of being knocked out by a scrawny little goblin called Scabber. And over here Havoc is going to charge Swampy. Now over the course of the campaign these two have had several run-ins. Is this going to be the last? 5 attacks, hitting on 3s. It's 2 rendings, and we can re-roll a 1 because he can re-roll 1 die per round because he's an elite. That's 5 hits, 2 of which are rending. So those 6s will need natural 6s to save. No, and they can't be regenerated. So that's 5 wounds on Swampy. And then these 3 will be 4-up saves. And 2 go through. Can they be regenerated? No, that's 7 wounds on Swampy, so that will effectively be an automatic KO because Swampy is tough 3, he's taken 7 wounds, and on an 8 or more he'll be knocked out, and Harak is a berserker, which means he adds 1 to the roll, so Swampy has been taken out by Harak. Dribblesnot is going to advance slightly, just enough to get him out of his own deployment zone, because about half his base is currently in his deployment zone. And he is now going to glare at Havoc. Anything but a 1. It's a 2. That'll do. It's a 2. AP3. So a 6 to save on Havoc. That's a 5. That's deadly 3. So Havoc is now on 5 wounds. Is he knocked out by his arch enemy, the Goblin Shaman? Yes, he is. Just. 5 and 3 is 8. Havoc is taken down by the Goblin Shaman. Now the Beasts That Hunger are currently 3 points in the lead, and Creighton is torn between rushing into the enemy deployment zone and getting 1 extra point, putting them 4 points in the lead, or taking out one of those two, let's face it, relatively soft squishy units. I mean, that Goblin is easy pickings, and yeah, he's safe from them for now, and if he can carry on contesting objective 1, it's going to make it all the more difficult for the Goblins to hold objective 1 in the next turn if it gets to that. So I think he is a beast that hungers. He is hungering for Goblin flesh, so he is going to charge that Goblin. Although I haven't said that, I don't know if Goblins taste very nice. It might taste like chicken, you never know. First of all, he takes a dangerous terrain test, because he's charging a phalanx, but it's only 1 die this time because there's only 1 Goblin in the unit. And he's good. However, unlike last turn, I've remembered that he loses Furious because he's charged a phalanx unit. So when he gets 1 attack with his great weapon, this will hit him a 3. That hits. AP2, so natural 6 to save. And that's a 3. So that is one wound through on Scabber. Is he knocked out on a 5 or a 6? No, he's not. He's simply stunned. Does he kick the Goblin away in disgust on a 4 up? Yes. And finally he backs off an inch. Back over on this flank, the Goblin archers have moved out of charge range of Kargon the Wrathful and are going to shoot at him with their short bows. So 3 shots hitting on 5s. That's 2 hits. 3 up saves. Both save. But Kargon the Wrathful is still going to rush forward, so he's contesting objective 5. Slobbergob is going to try and take a chunk out of Creighton's leg. 2 attacks hitting on 4s. 2 hits. It's a shame 6s aren't rending. But they are AP1, so this will be 5 up saves. They both fail, so that's 2 wounds through on Creighton. But he is tough 3. He will fight back, and he's already fought in combat this turn, so he's only hitting on an unmodified 6. And that's a miss. And Slobbergob drops back an inch. And yet again, Greekar is just going to man the backfield. He's not in the deployment zone, but he's going to stay on that objective and simply mark himself as activated because he's too far away to do any good anywhere else. So that is all activations done. So now we need to do morale for the Beasts That Hunger. So Greekar will run away on a 1, 2 or 3. No, he's good, he's going to stick around. Creighton will stay put on a 3 up. Creighton is running away. And finally, the new boy, Kargon the Wrathful, will stay put on a 3 up. He's going to run away as well. So that just leaves Greekar all on his lonesome. So at the end of turn 3, the Beasts That Hunger still hold objectives 2, 4 and 6. The Goblins still hold objectives 3 and 5, but they now also hold objective 1. However, they weren't holding it at the start of the turn. Let's go and check out the objective cards again. Right, on the march, have no units from your army in your deployment zone. They both score that, so they both get a point. Delve Deep, have at least 1 unit within the enemy's deployment zone for 1 victory point. Neither of the warbands have scored that. And Hold 1 control objective marker 1 at the beginning and end of the same round. It was contested at the beginning of the round, so neither warband scores that. So 1 point each puts the Beast That Hunger on 5 points and the Goblins on 2 points as we go into turn 4. Now the Goblins are currently behind, and I think they're going to get rid of Delve Deep and keep hold of Hold 1 since they currently are in possession of it. Card draw for the 4th and final turn. This could be interesting. So we've still got Hold 1 from the previous turn. If the Goblins can do that, that will put them on 4 points, and the Beasts That Hunger are currently on 5. The other cards are interesting. Seize 2 and Hold 2. Well, at the moment, the Beasts That Hunger are in control of Objective 2. Now the Goblins will get to activate first. So yeah, some thought needs to go into what the Goblins are going to do, because Greekar is still back there to fend them off. Is there going to be a random event on a 5 or a 6? Yes, there is. Purple 10s, green units, 56. Right, 56 is possessed. Select one random unit. Enemy units within 6 inches of it get -1 to morale until the end of the mission. So odds, Goblins, evens, Greekar. It's Goblins, and I don't think that's going to make much difference because there's no way that Greekar can take morale, so yeah, we'll just ignore that. Okay, so here's how things look. Greekar is down here by Objective 4. Objective 2 is the all-important one. There's nothing Greekar can do to prevent the Goblins from holding Objective 1, so the Goblins will get 2 points for holding Objective 1. So Objective 2 is the critical one. If the Goblins can seize it, they will be able to get a draw. If Greekar can prevent them from doing that, then yeah, the Beast That Hunger will get a win. The Archers and Dribblesnot, neither of those 2 units can get far enough around this rock to get line of sight and range on Greekar to take him out. Now there is another possibility. Dribblesnot can cast a spell called Sneaky, which he can cast on a friendly unit and they immediately move 6 inches. So the Goblins, in addition to their regular movement, could get round here to shoot at Greekar, but they would be shooting across this difficult terrain, so that means they'd be yeah, Greekar will get the benefit of cover, which means they'd be hitting on unmodified 6s, and there's only 3 shots. Alternatively, Dribblesnot could come this way and try and cast Sneaky on Slobbergob, who would then be able to get a bit closer towards Objective 2. And yeah, I think he's then got a bit better chance of taking out Greekar if Greekar decides he's going to go and defend Objective 2. So yeah, I think he's got more chance of success, although if the Archers can kill him or knock him out, then that just means Slobbergob just simply has to boing over to Objective 2. Yeah, let's try and cast it on the Archers, see if that works. Ordinarily this would go off on a 6, but Dribblesnot is Wizard 2, so it'll go up on a 4+, so 50-50 chance of this working in the first place. It works. So that causes the Archers to move 6 inches. But Greekar can see what's coming, so he's going to move away, out of range, over towards Objective 2 to defend it. See, doesn't pay to overthink things. Should have kept it simple and put the extra 6 inches on Slobbergob. So Greekar has moved over and he's just within 3 inches of Objective 2. And that's all he can do. So now it comes down to whether or not Slobbergob can boing far enough over to charge Greekar. He is just under 19 inches away, so he needs 7 or more from 3d3. 3, 4, 5, 6. That's not enough. He needed that 1 to have been a 3 or more, or that to have been a 5 or a 6, or for the wizard's spell to have targeted him to move an extra 6 inches instead. So the best they can do is contest that objective, but they won't be holding it at the end of the turn. And we do obviously need to stand up Scabber, otherwise he won't be holding objective 1. So Slobbergob has boinged to contest the objective. Scabber has stood up, so he is still holding that objective, and there's no point in the archers doing anything, and Dribblesnot is activated, and yeah, that will be the end of turn 4. So let's check out the scores. So right now it's 5 points to 2 for the Beast That Hunger. The Goblins are holding objective 1, so that gives them another 2 points. That's 5 points to 4. The Beast That Hunger are not holding objective 2, and they haven't seized objective 2, but neither of the Goblins, so it's 5 points to 4 for the Beast That Hunger. So a lone lowly Gore Reaver is responsible for leading the Beast That Hunger, those mighty warriors, to a victory over the Goblins. That will put the Havoc Warrior Disciples, known as the Beast That Hunger, on 10 victory points for the campaign to the Goblins' 8 in this final game. Now I'm sure we all want to find out what happened to those who fell during that battle, but before we do, I just want to offer some thoughts or some reflections on the campaign as a whole. Yeah, short version, I really enjoyed it, and yeah, I'll be honest, when I saw it was going to be 9 episodes long, my heart sank a little bit. I thought, am I going to get bored with doing this? People are going to get bored watching it. And there were sometimes it did feel a little bit like a labour of love. But once I actually got into the games, I found that, yeah, I want to find out what happens next. I want to know what happens to these characters. And I did admit that I was rooting for the Goblins, but the dice don't care who you root for. So if you're playing solo, I don't think you need to use the AI rules. You can just play the game by yourself, and as long as you're as objective as you can be, the dice will do the rest of the work for you. I mean, yeah, Dribblesnot rolling so many ones towards the end of the campaign for his glare ability. I got a lot of comments early on in the campaign saying that I think glare is a bit overpowered. Yeah, it is, but law of averages turns out it's a thing. So yeah, those ones started coming thick and fast towards the end. In terms of the way the campaign works, there are a couple of things that I didn't particularly like. Gaining assets to get recruitment and gaining experience to make your fighters better, that felt a bit like a slog at times. As I say, it was partly my fault for having permadeath. If the Goblins hadn't all died through permadeath, I'd have had a lot more Goblins. Random events. We didn't get random events for quite a while, and when they did come, they didn't feel like they actually added that much to the games where they turned up. That said, something I really do like is the underdog bonuses. I think that's an amazing mechanic. I love it. I think it's brilliant. So well done for coming up with that. I think it's amazing. Yeah, I like that. I think it's better than a reroll, because there's certain situations where if it was simply a case of, oh, it gives you a reroll instead, you'd simply reroll the dice and you'd just use it. But there's other situations where you fail a dice test, but you need to modify it by more than 1. So you might need to modify the die by 2 or 3, and if it was a reroll, you could simply do it. Whereas as you're modifying it up and down by 1, you really have to think about it in the certain situations where you can't. So I think that's better than a reroll. So yeah, I like that mechanic. Keep that in. Good stuff. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the campaign system. It's a lot of fun. I do think, again, the cards add a lot of flavour. Adds a bit more variety than just controlling the objectives. It gives you a few extra things to go by. That said, it's another very random element. And again, I think part of the reason the Goblins lost that last game was because they didn't get the cards that they could score. So it does make it much more random, but in a good way, I think. And I think the way that I did the games, using the one deck for both sides rather than a deck each, it's easier to keep track of if you're playing solo. that one game where I did use one deck each, I did lose track of who was trying to achieve what. So I think it's a lot more manageable if you're playing by yourself. Just use the one deck for both warbands. But anyway, I think that's the end of my waffle and my thoughts. Let's find out what happened to the guys who fell in combat. So here they all are, and we'll start from left to right. We'll start with Scabbers Stabbers. On a roll of a 1, they die. On a roll of a 6, ordinarily they'd get an XP, but this is the last game, so we're just rolling to see, do they survive or not? Scabbers Stabbers. Survive. Swampy Stompy. Don't be a 1. Please don't be a 1. He survives. Good old Swampy. Terrafang. Survives. Grareth the Skull Splitter. Falls. Grareth is no more. The mighty Grareth. Grag the Howler. Survives. Kerulk the Berserk. Survives. Harrock the Exalted. Survives and would have got an XP. Well, there we go. That is the end of the campaign. Thank you folks for sticking with it. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'm very grateful for the encouragement and the comments you've been sending about how much you're enjoying it and who's been rooting for which sides and who's been standing out for you as a character. I know there's been a lot of fans of Terrafang in particular. I know there's been some derogatory remarks about Harrock and how cowardly he is, but yeah, I've got a plan in mind for that. I now need to manage expectations because I have been putting a video out every week. Next week there probably won't be a video because I'm going to be away for next week. It's coming up to holidays time and we're taking a bit of a weekend break. Apparently there's going to be a knight there called Lewis who's driving some kind of black silver thing. It's the wife's dragging me down there to watch it completely against my will, so there won't be a video out next week. If you're watching this in the future, that doesn't really matter, but my intention for the next few videos is I want to do something a bit bigger. The next one that I'm planning is going to be a reasonably large battle of Grimdark Future, and I'm quite excited for that one. And then there's another battle that I'm thinking about doing for proper Age of Fantasy rather than Age of Fantasy Skirmish, and then I'm planning on doing a firefight campaign similar to this but with more than just 2 factions, more than just 2 warbands. So please stay tuned for that. Thank you again for liking, commenting and subscribing, and until next time, God bless.